Hi, and welcome to Latter Day Paint, where you watch me paint while I reflect on my faith. Today, I'm having a go at a portrait of the Savior. I was liking the simplicity of the portrait before I added the color, and the style completely changed. Let me know which one you like the most. These two styles of painting remind me of an analogy that I would like to share. There were two painters. They were masters of their trade, knew every technique there was to know, and perfected their skills. The first painter understood how incredibly rare and valuable his skills were. He would spend days and weeks hiding in his art studio, creating perfect masterpieces. He hired people to market his work, and they would tell about his paintings in progress and build anticipation. They would hold big events to reveal his new masterpieces. People would pay high prices and wait in long lines just for the opportunity to gaze upon the paintings. Rich collectors would bid extravagantly on each painting, knowing that to own one of these pieces would elevate their collections more than any other artist could by far. This artist knew that he needed to hide his techniques, his works, not only to keep his fans in anticipation, but to reveal his methods would rob the piece of its mystery. If people knew how it was done, people would be able to make their own masterpieces, and his paintings will lose their value. While he would hide away to paint, people began to speculate if this person was even painting, or if he would just conjure the paintings or transform them from stars. People believed that this person must be beautiful to know such beauty. He must have 6 or 7 hands with 12 fingers on each just to be able to paint this way. As the mystery increased the value and wonder of the masterpieces, the fewer people tried to paint, knowing they could never achieve anything nearly so wonderful. And the artist wanted it that way. Less competition would surely make his paintings even more valuable over time. He would be the last master painter, and he would be adored for his creations forever. The second painter was just as skilled and created just as wonderful work as the first. But rather than paint in secret, this painter was a teacher. He would demonstrate his skills little by little to students who were willing to learn and excited to understand how such works could come to be. When the students would get frustrated by how simple and mediocre their paintings were in comparison, the teacher painter would lovingly agree. He would make sure they understood that they had a long way to go, that they would have to work every single day to improve their skills to master painting the way he did. When one painter was particularly discouraged, instead of quitting, the student turned to the master painter, who privately revealed some of his beginning works in order to encourage his student to keep trying and to keep progressing. When his students would show improvement, incorporating his lessons and his methods, the teacher's joy of creating masterpieces expanded through the joy of his students' achievements. He knew that his work could never be diminished, nor become less beautiful as his students gained more skills and created more works of art. He knew that because of him and his efforts to teach, combined with his students' effort to learn and copy his methods, there was more beauty to behold in the world. He wanted the whole world to be full of beauty, and his dream was to have a legacy of artists that would share and spread what he knew throughout all generations. His legacy would be expanded through the work of his students, and not be limited to only what he created on his own. There has been talk from Hebrew scholars, including those of the Jewish Publication Society, about a possible misunderstanding or mistranslation of Genesis 1:1, the very first statement made in the Bible. The idea is that a more appropriate translation for, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," would be, "When God began to create heaven and earth." This is significant to not only have a clearer understanding of the creation story, but to more fully understand the methods of God's creation, including how he was limited to forming and organizing out of only what he already had available to him. The following verse would then substantiate his argument by including a description of the things with which he began to work, like formless earth and waters. I understand the frustration and even the shock that a creedal Christian would have at the idea of God being limited, that he didn't create everything from nothing, but rather he organized all his creations through matter that was already there. It makes sense to me that it would diminish his glory to take away the mystery of his method. But until someone is willing to see God as a teacher who wants his children to become as he is, little by little through lots of work and sacrifice, they can only see him as a God who only glorifies himself through his own creations. That to me is much more limiting than a God who creates something out of nothing. To know God as a father who loves his children so much that he wants us to experience the same sort of joy and satisfaction he gains through his creations is to worship a God that is truly capable of loving perfectly. God doesn't hide his art supplies. He's allowed us to discover elements and principles. I've come to think that science is really just a word to describe us trying to figure out how God did it all. And I believe he wants us to try to discover all that we can. And saying there's nothing to discover just because God is all powerful is kind of like claiming a painting happened without any paint because the artist is just that good. Claiming that God doesn't create out of nothing and that he is limited by laws and materials doesn't take away from his glory. It allows for us to see how we can add to his glory. A teacher knows that as his student thrives, his own ability isn't taken away. Beauty isn't taken away. Glory isn't taken away. Joy isn't taken away. It's added upon. What kind of artist is God? Is his legacy his paintings or his painters?